Well, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to Buckeyes Now on Sports Illustrated. I'm Brendan Gulick. This is Andrew Lind, and this is the Buckeye Report from the Woody Hayes Athletic Center. It's day 2 of actual practice, day 3, I guess, of the team being here because they reported on Wednesday. Today is Friday, August 5th, and the Buckeyes are back to work, of course. And we had a chance this afternoon to hear from Tony Alford, the running backs coach. And we talked to several guys in that room. Andrew, this was an offense last year that obviously was so heavily predicated on their aerial attack, and they shredded teams. I mean, think about what C.J. Stroud did to Michigan State in the first half last year when he threw for 370 yards. Lots and lots of passing records broken. But I think you could make the argument that this is the best returning running back room in the country, certainly with those top two guys in Trayvion and in Mayan. And I know the Buckeyes are looking forward to having a little more balance in that attack this year.
Yeah, and I think that that's going to be a really important part of just the offense this year. You know, we talked yesterday kind of about just how there was those moments where the offense would not, really rely on the run very much, get pass heavy. And I think that, being able to rely on Trayvion to win you a game, or bringing in Mayan and, those guys kind of feeding off each other will eventually win you a game this year. So I think it's very important to focus on that.
It was such an emphasis on the physicality and the toughness. And again, as Coach Day has said a lot here in the last several months, the competitive stamina of the defense. And in so many ways, it kind of feels like this 2022 version of the Buckeyes is going to go as far as the defense can take them. I think that's going to get talked about a lot, and we will certainly ourselves kind of hammer on that. But let's focus on the running backs because it's running back day. Tony Alford got a promotion in the offseason, right? He's now the run game coordinator, not just the running backs coach. I don't know if there's a position coach here, and there are some really good guys that love being here. But, man, I don't know if there's somebody that I like more than Tony Alford. I love his mentality. I love his tough love for his players. He talked today about how personally he takes it when he hears negative things about the guys in his room. He really doesn't want a lot of separation between 1 and 2. He feels like it's a room of guys that, they're competing for playing time, but he said they're honestly friends. They spend a lot of time together, and he just loves the makeup of that group.
Yeah, and I think it's really interesting what you said about, not really being a lot of difference between 1 and 2 or 2 and 3, because that just means that you have 3 really good running backs at that point. It's not like, one guy is head and shoulders above the others, and then you can't rely on the other guys in times of need. And, I think it was really interesting, too, that Mayan today said that, when somebody else is in and he's standing on the sidelines beside Coach Alford, like, he's cheering on the guys. Like, he doesn't, want them to fail so that he can go in or anything like that. And I think that that's a very important part of just the culture of the room. And then, when somebody like Dallin Hayden gets here, they want to kind of beat them down and be like, we want to mold you into this player. But I think in the long term, it really allows them to grow and just be more comfortable with each other and do exactly what he wants.
I asked Coach Alford about the recruiting trail right now, not necessarily about guys that he specifically is talking to, but more generally the kinds of questions that he gets asked, because recruiting right now is different than it even was 2 years ago with all the name, image, and likeness and the transfer stuff. And he said, look, it's an interesting time because the relationship building component of recruiting isn't going to change. You're trying to build meaningful, lasting relationships with these kids. But yeah, there are a lot of questions that now get asked about name, image, and likeness. And he said, I can't tell you the names of guys, but there are certainly guys that I'm recruiting, in Coach Alford's words, who are all about what can you do for me on the field? How can you make me better? What am I going to get out of being a Buckeye and playing for you? And I got the impression that it was kind of refreshing because it tells me that he's going after the kids who are in this for the right reasons. And it's probably why he and so many of the other assistant coaches here have had such success bringing in high caliber kids.
Well, I think that can cause you to struggle a little bit on the recruiting trail too, because you're going against these schools that might be willing to do something up front, whether the NCAA rules allow for it or not. And really, he has the perfect example. He can point to Trayvion, who was a highly rated recruit, out of state recruit for a fact, and then he comes in, has a breakout game, sets a freshman record against Tulsa for rushing yards in a game, and then just kind of sees his his marketability, his endorsement opportunities, all those kind of things just kind of take off. And really, it's the perfect blueprint and say, hey, you put in the work, you do what you're supposed to do, and you're going to see rewards for it. And I think that there's, just kind of talking about the culture of kids that Ohio State recruits, they want those kind of kids who want to put in the hard work to see the reward and not just see it immediately.
I'm not sure if I want to go down the, making bold predictions about stats and things like that, because first of all, it's so early in camp. It's kind of hard to really feel like you can make an accurate statement about any of that. But by the same token, as a unit, I think the running backs are going to play a more prominent role this year, because everything about this program screams we need more balance. Mm-hmm. It's not that they can't throw the ball all over the field. Last year's offense wasn't just the number one offense in the country last year. It was historically good. It was one of the top 3 offenses in the last decade in college football. But there were moments where they needed some physicality, and maybe it was more a reflection of the offensive line than it was of the running backs. But there were moments where I thought they really needed to lean on the running game, and they went away from it.
Maybe that's something that, Ryan Day talked yesterday about how, they haven't proven themselves, or they haven't, done anything yet. And I think that now that we're having this conversation here, I kind of guess I see where he's coming from in that respect, because there is a lot of unknown, especially along the offensive line, just improving the run game, like those kind of things. So I think that, if those are things that they want to work on, maybe they're not going to have, the number 1 scoring offense or the number 1 yardage, those kind of things, but maybe they'll have a better balanced offense, and then they will actually be a better offense despite not leading. It kind of doesn't make sense from a statistical standpoint, but yeah. I think that I think I understand kind of now where he's coming from.
You can't be predictable. Yeah. And in the 3 hardest games that Ohio State played last year, obviously the defense didn't play well, but there were times the offense got a little predictable. Oregon, Michigan, and Utah all had some nervous moments. Obviously 2 of those games ended up being defeats. So I'm just excited to see what Trayvion Henderson in particular has in store. There were obviously a heck of a lot of expectations for him coming in. I'm not sure anybody really thought he was going to do what he did as a true freshman. Not that he wasn't capable, but you just kind of wondered if a kid can go in right away and look like Maurice Clarett did. Obviously he had an incredible season, and I know a lot of people are fired up to see how his second year goes. He talked about how he lives on his own, and it's not because he's not friends with the other guys on the team. He said, I'm clean. And I got the impression he didn't want to live in a typical college, setting where things are maybe a little messier. But he said, look, I spend the vast majority of my time in this building, very serious about trying to get better. You really get the impression that despite being an underclassman, he's a leader on this team. And I think he and Mayan Williams are rubbing off on each other a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I think that part of the reason that he's in here so often is because he does see room for improvement. I mean, if you kind of look at the way he ended the year, he wasn't able to really get going against Michigan State because they were very pass heavy, and then he couldn't really get going against Michigan, and they just really struggled to get anything going offensively in the run game then. And then, he didn't get in the end zone in the Rose Bowl as they were, trying to make a comeback and having to pass the ball a lot. So, maybe he didn't finish the year that he, the way he wanted. And I think that kind of drives him to then, say, hey, I can't just do it for a little bit. I have to do it for the whole year if we're going to reach our goals.
Oh, it's going to be fun to watch this group perform this year for sure. There is practice tomorrow, but it is not open to the media. Sunday is an off day. The team is moving into the hotel here for the next couple of weeks, so we will have coverage from the move-in on Sunday. We'll be back here on Monday. Looking forward very much to an opportunity to speak with Coach Fry and the offensive linemen. I hope there's a bunch of them that are made available to us, because that's probably one of the 2 groups on this team that I think has, the most question marks, not who the starters are, but how those other roles are going to get filled. And we'll speak with them on Monday next week.
Yeah, and I think that, we kind of know, how the general makeup of the offensive line is going to be. But as we've seen in the past too, it's, it's important to have depth. It's important to have versatility of players who can kind of, provide help if somebody goes down or anything like that. So it'll be kind of interesting just to kind of hear from them and see how camp is going and just kind of how that is settling itself out.
We'll finally flip to the other side of the ball on Tuesday. Jim Knowles will talk. So will the linebackers. Monday, Tuesday next week, offensive line and linebackers with 2 of the new coaches on this team, both on the offensive line and, of course, linebackers and defensive coordinator. Those are two position groups I think people are really looking forward to seeing some special stuff from here in 2022. So we'll be back here for a Buckeye Report on Monday, and certainly hope you'll follow along. We'll keep you updated over the weekend if any news breaks, and we've got some fun coverage planned for you here through the rest of camp. For Andrew Lind, I'm Brendan Gulick. This is the Buckeye Report from Woody Hayes Athletic Center. We'll see you real soon on Buckeyes Now.